Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. Kashmiris on both sides of the line of control are observing the accession to Pakistan Day with a renewed pledge to continue the struggle for freedom. On this day in 1947, true representatives of the Kashmiris unanimously passed the resolution of Kashmir's accession to Pakistan. In his message on the day, Prime Minister Imran Khan reassured Pakistan's commitment to stand by the Kashmiris in their struggle for freedom. Beijing says it will respond to any attempt by the UK to sanction Chinese officials over new Hong Kong security law. In an interview, China's envoy to the UK, Liu Xiaoming, said London should chart its own foreign policy rather than dance to the tune of Washington. Tensions between London and Beijing are rising over a host of issues, including Hong Kong and Huawei. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's corruption trial has resumed after a 2-month break. Netanyahu has now become the first serving Israeli Prime Minister to go on trial. He was indicted last year on bribery, fraud and breach of trust. A record increase in the global number of COVID-19 cases has been reported over the past 24 hours. The World Health Organization says almost 260,000 people tested positive overnight, increasing the toll to over 14.2 million with more than 601,000 deaths. Brazil has reported over 28,000 infections and 971 fatalities overnight, increasing the death toll to nearly 79,000. In Pakistan, 46 people lost their lives in the last 24 hours, raising the total to 5,568 with nearly 263,000 cases. Those are the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Prime Minister Imran Khan says Pakistan is committed to the Kashmiri people and stands with them in their struggle for freedom. Marking the accession to Pakistan Day, Khan said Kashmiri's right to self-determination is recognized by the UN Security Council and international law. Khan said Pakistan will continue to fight for justice for Kashmiris as they struggle against the brutal and illegal actions of the Hindutva supremacist India. The Prime Minister said he is confident that justice will prevail in the occupied valley and Kashmiris will be free one day. This comes as Kashmiris on both sides of the line of control are observing the accession to Pakistan Day with a renewed pledge to continue the struggle for freedom. On 19th of July in 1947, representatives of the Kashmiris unanimously passed the resolution of Kashmir's accession to Pakistan. The decision was a testimony to the fact that the people of Kashmir had linked their future with Pakistan. 73 years ago today, at a meeting of the All Jammu and Kashmir Muslim Conference in Srinagar, true representatives of the Kashmiris unanimously passed the resolution of Kashmir's accession to Pakistan. The historic resolution called for the accession of the state of Jammu and Kashmir to Pakistan. The decision was a testimony to the fact that the people of Kashmir had linked their future with Pakistan.
As 13 million Kashmiris languish under Indian oppression, tyranny and brutality, they are remembering the Kashmir accession day when they decided to join Pakistan instead of India. A decision that was bulldozed by the greed of Hari Singh, who sold off the valley against the will of its people to New Delhi. International rights groups say Indian occupation forces have martyred over 100,000 Kashmiris since 1989, close to 100 this year so far. Pakistan has fought on every forum the case for the right of self-determination of the Kashmiris and the UN-mandated plebiscite in the valley. The occupied Kashmir has been under New Delhi's crushing curfew and communications blackout for for the past 349 days.
The Indian government has decided to start the construction of a Hindu temple at a disputed religious site in Ayodhya from early August. Officials say Prime Minister Narendra Modi will lay the foundation stone of the temple at the site of the 16th century Babri Mosque. Last year, India's apex court allowed Hindus to build a temple on the site, which was demolished by Hindu mobs in 1992. This had sparked countrywide riots in which thousands of people lost their lives. In Afghanistan, 2 district police chiefs have been killed in separate IED blasts in Zabul and PACT provinces. In Zabul, Nobahar's governor says police chief of the district died after his vehicle struck a roadside mine in Shara-e-Safa. He said 4 security personnel were also wounded in the explosion. Police in PACT province say the chief of Sorobi district was killed by a blast while he was on his way to defend a security checkpoint. They said 3 of his guards were also killed in the bombing. The Taliban have claimed responsibility for the PACT province killing, but no group has claimed the responsibility for the Zabul blast so far. Nepal's Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Oli has accused India of appropriating its heritage and distorting history. Tensions between the 2 countries have risen after Kathmandu issued a map including regions that Delhi claims ownership of. Nepal also claimed that the disputed religious site of Ayodhya was its territory and the Hindu deity Lord Ram was also Nepalese. Prime Minister Oli said Kathmandu has been suppressed culturally and facts have been twisted. The Prime Minister said India has created a fake Ayodhya, provenance of the Hindu Lord Ram, as a pretext to occupy the Babri Mosque. India has reported its highest single-day spike in COVID-19 cases as nearly 39,000 people tested positive in the last 24 hours. The Health Ministry said the total number of infections has reached over 1.07 million. The ministry said 543 more people died overnight, raising the toll to nearly 27,000. It said Maharashtra is the worst affected state, having over 300,000 cases and more than 11,000 fatalities. Officials said for 17 of the last 20 days, the number of people recovering from the disease in Delhi remained higher than newly detected cases. But they said no other state in the country has come close to such a trend. Pakistan has reported 46 deaths from the COVID-19 in the last 24 hours, raising the toll to 5,568. The Health Ministry says 1,579 cases were reported overnight as the tally crossed 263,000. The ministry said over 204,000 people have recovered from the virus so far. It said that there are now over 59,000 active cases in the country, among which 1,763 are critically ill. Sindh is the worst hit province with over 112,000 infections, while Punjab has reported over 89,000 cases. A record high number of COVID-19 cases has been recorded across the world in the past 24 hours. The World Health Organization says some 260,000 people tested positive in one day. The number of global cases has now crossed 14.2 million with more than 600,000 deaths. In Brazil, 921 deaths were recorded and over 28,000 people infected overnight, with the death toll approaching 78,000. More in this report.
The COVID-19 pandemic is raging across the world once again, breaking grim records every day and overwhelming healthcare systems. US deaths from the novel coronavirus have exceeded 140,000 as cases continue to rise in 43 out of 50 states. The pandemic is also not letting up in Southern America, where Mexico and Brazil are the worst hit. But Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro has ruled out any lockdown measures, saying they have suffocated the country's economy.
Depression kills more than the virus COVID-19, so we have to face the problem, the coronavirus pandemic, keeping the head up. Regrettably, people are going to die. People are going to die.
South Africa now ranks 5th in the world for coronavirus cases as an aggressive outbreak hits the African continent. The country reported more than 13,000 new cases with a tally above 350,000. In Australia, the opening of Parliament has been delayed by several weeks due to a second wave in most populous states. The new outbreaks in Spain have forced regional officers to announce a ban on gatherings of over 10 people. Elsewhere, thousands of angry protesters came out in Israel against the government's handling of the pandemic.
We are protesting against our government that doesn't do nothing for the citizen. Everything is closed, everything is open. We don't really know what's going on with the corona, with the numbers. People don't know if they have food to eat tomorrow. We want answer, we want food, we want our money back. And it's very sad.
In Asia, China has reported 16 new COVID-19 cases on the mainland, of which 13 were domestically transmitted, while South Korea's new daily virus cases hovered below 40 for the second straight day. The country identified 34 new cases, raising the total caseload to 13,745.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's corruption trial has resumed after a 2-month break. Netanyahu has now become the first serving Israeli Prime Minister to go on trial. The Israeli Prime Minister was indicted last year on bribery, fraud and breach of trust, while Israelis have taken to the streets in almost daily demonstrations against him over handling of COVID-19 crisis and corruption allegations. Protesters have called on Netanyahu to resign, but according to Israeli law, a prime minister charged with a crime is not required to resign. The trial was delayed by several months due to fights over potential immunity, back-to-back elections and COVID-19. The leader of right-wing Likud party is Israel's longest-serving prime minister, having been in power continuously since 2009. Syria is holding parliamentary elections today after 2 delays because of the COVID-19 pandemic. These are the third parliamentary polls in the war-torn country since the pro-democracy uprising against President Bashar al-Assad in 2011. The vote will be held in government-held areas as well as some areas in the provinces of Al-Hasaka, Idlib and Al-Raqqa, where Damascus has partial control. Official data shows some 2,100 candidates are contesting for 250-seat parliament in all 15 Syrian governorates. In the 2016 vote, an alliance led by the ruling Arab Socialist Baath Party backed 200 out of 250 seats in the unicameral legislature. France, Germany and Italy have threatened to sanction that continue to violate a United Nations arms embargo on Libya. A joint statement was issued by French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Angela Merkel and Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte. The leaders urged the warring parties in Libya and their foreign supporters to immediately end a military escalation in the country. EU leaders have asked the UN for large disengagement of forces and possible demilitarization in parts of the country. The leaders reaffirmed the need for a special representative of the Secretary General in Libya to be appointed promptly. Greece says it is on the verge of signing an agreement on maritime borders with Egypt. Greek ambassador to Egypt, Nicholas Gardilis, said that Turkey will not like the exclusive economic zone demarcation agreement between Greece and Egypt. He said it is up to Ankara to maintain good relations with its neighbors. Secretary of Foreign Relations Committee of the Egyptian Parliament, Tariq Al-Khouli, said the agreement will guarantee the economic rights of Cairo and Athens. He said the demarcation is part of the international community's response to Turkey's practices that have broken international law. Last year, Ankara signed a maritime accord with Tripoli, seeking to create an exclusive economic zone at Turkey's southern Mediterranean shore. Azerbaijan says the recent border clashes with Armenia have jeopardized energy exports to world markets from the Caspian Sea route. Vice President of Azeri State Energy Company, SOCAR, Elshad Nasirov, said the energy infrastructure is located in the vicinity of the current military operations. Nasirov said 2 oil and 1 gas pipeline and some other facilities are also located not far from the territory where clashes have taken place. Yesterday, Armenia also warned about security risks to the region coming from Azerbaijan after Baku said it might strike the Metasomo nuclear power plant. 15 servicemen from Azerbaijan and Armenia and 1 Azeri civilian have died in clashes between the 2 countries since July the 12th. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has discussed key issues of further bolstering a war deterrent with the country's military. State media says Kim chaired a Central Military Commission meeting and approved major munitions production plan indices. It said meetings stressed the need to thoroughly arm the young commanding officers. This was followed by a closed meeting to examine the military situation in the Korean peninsula and the potential threat. State media has called for the measures taken as historic decision. Pyongyang has threatened to give up its willingness to denuclearize after 3 failed summits between Kim and US President Donald Trump. EU leaders have extended the summit by an extra day amid a lockdown on over $2 trillion budget and a massive COVID-19 recovery fund. A spokesperson for European Council President Charles Michel says the summit will reconvene today. The recovery deal is being blocked by northern European countries who favor aid to be given in form of payable loans rather than free grants. Hopes for an agreement grew on Saturday when Michel proposed revisions to the overall package. Under this new plan, the share of the free grants in the proposed 750 billion euros recovery fund was cut to 450 billion euros from 500 billion. But Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte said he still sees a big difference between EU member states. Russia has told Azerbaijan it is carrying out snap combat readiness drills amid border tensions between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Russian Deputy Defense Minister Alexander Fomin says these were carried out in the spirit of goodwill. Russia considers Armenia its strategic partner, but Fomin denied any claims that these drills are linked to tensions on the Azeri-Armenian border. The Defense Ministry says the drills involve about 15,000 service members and 400 aircraft. They also include 26,000 weapons and military hardware and over 100 vessels. Russia's ambassador to the UK, Andrei Kelin, has rejected London allegations that Moscow's intelligence services tried to steal COVID-19 vaccine research. Talking to media, he also rejected suggestions that Russia had interfered in UK politics. This comes days before a report into allegations of Russian interference into UK democracy is due to be published by Parliament's Intelligence and Security Committee. The UK, the US and Canada security services had alleged Russia of targeting vaccine developers. Earlier this week, Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said Russians almost certainly sought to interfere in the 2019 UK election through illicitly acquired documents. More stories to follow, but right after a short break, stay tuned. Welcome back. In the U.S., the state of Oregon has sued the federal government, accusing Washington of unlawfully detaining protesters in Portland. Oregon's Attorney General has filed a lawsuit against the Department of Homeland Security and the Marshals Service in a federal court. The complaint says unidentified federal agents grabbed people off city streets without any warrants. The Attorney General said she is seeking a temporary restraining order to stop federal authorities from unlawfully detaining protesters. The federal government says it is trying to restore order in the city under President Donald Trump's executive order to protect the monuments. Thousands of Portlanders have held daily demonstrations outside the federal courthouse since the custodial murder of George Floyd. In Panama, 7 people have been murdered in an attack by unknown assailants near the capital, Panama City. The chief prosecutor says bodies of 4 women and 3 men were found near a lake about 80 kilometers north of the capital. The prosecutor said the Gatun Lake victims were of ages between 17 and 22. He said some people who managed to escape the attack are assisting authorities with the investigation. Authorities said some of the victims had gunshot wounds, but the motive for the attack remains unclear. Victims' family members had reported them missing on Friday after they had gone out for a swim. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has put forward a new global deal to battle growing inequality across the world. The plan aims to create a new model for global governance under ethical frameworks to ensure that power, wealth, and opportunities are shared more fairly.
Delivering the annual lecture for the Nelson Mandela Foundation via internet, Guterres said people have suffered enough because of inequality and racism. He added, colonialism and patriarchy are the reasons why people are denied their fundamental human rights. He highlighted that inequality starts at the top in global institutions, and these should be reformed to meet the needs of this world. Guterres highlighted the world needs a new social contract which would allow young people to live in dignity. He labeled the pandemic a generational opportunity to build more equal, sustainable world.
China has raised the flood alert level in Huai River region to the second highest after days of torrential downpours. Water Resources Ministry says the water levels have exceeded in 10 reservoirs by 6.8 meters. The ministry said torrential rains have battered China for 2 weeks from Chongqing to Shanghai. It said floods prevention situation is severe, while water is likely to exceed the maximum level that reservoirs can withstand. The 1,000-kilometer Huai River flows through major agriculture and manufacturing hubs in 3 provinces. Officials say rains have disrupted the supply chain of protective equipment vital in the fight against COVID-19. Nearly 4 million people in India's northeastern state of Assam and neighboring Nepal have been displaced by heavy flooding from monsoon rains. Government officials say dozens have been missing as known deaths rise to 189. The Met Department said overflowing Brahmaputra River, which passes through China's Tibet, India and Bangladesh, have damaged crops. Assam state government says 79 people have died, while more than 2.75 million have been displaced by 3 waves of floods. In Nepal, police say 110 people have died in floods and landslides since June. The Home Ministry says 48 others are still missing. More heavy rains have been predicted in Nepal for the next 4 days. Another weather situation from around the globe. And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.